It was another time, another era. Back in the late 1960s, while Martin Luther King was preaching nonviolence, a group known as the Black Panthers was preaching revolution. Their leaders, Huey Newton, Bobby Seale, Eldridge Cleaver, called the police racist pigs. In turn, J. Edgar Hoover called them the most dangerous group in the United States. Today, the Black Panthers no longer exist. Their leaders have gone their separate ways. But Geronimo Pratt cannot. For most of the last 17 years, Pratt has been here in California's San Quentin prison. From the beginning, he has claimed that he is a victim of an FBI conspiracy, a political prisoner. But in spite of his protests, Pratt stands convicted of the senseless murder and $18 robbery of a 27-year-old white woman. You ever kill anybody?
I killed a lot of people. A lot of people. We probably got a whole graveyard of people I killed, and I'm talking about Vietnam. This is a different thing. That's not murder. When you look at it, it's not murder. This is, this is also justified. Yeah, you get medals for it, and then come back here, it's used against you. You're a cold, calculating killer, so send him to prison. But no, I have never killed anyone since the last killing right outside of Phu Bai in Vietnam, 1968.
In 1968, Elmer Pratt was a sergeant in the 82nd Airborne, a war hero with a chest full of medals, including 2 Purple Hearts.
The sergeant and his driver and his gunner were literally blown to pieces. They were all white, right? And they were blown to like toast, burnt toast. And about 2.5 hours later, my Jeep, I had to take a lead position, hit the same type of mine. And I was wounded in my lower extremities. I still have needle fragments in my lower body and my lower back.
Elmer Pratt was discharged from the Army and enrolled in the University of California at Los Angeles. But the war Pratt left behind in Vietnam followed him home. Rioting in the streets, assassinations. And so Elmer Pratt became Geronimo Pratt, the leader of the Southern California chapter of the Black Panther Party. By November 1970, Geronimo Pratt was facing a score of charges. He would be acquitted of all but one. Charges resulting from this 4.5-hour shootout with the Los Angeles police. Then Geronimo Pratt was indicted for the crime that may keep him in jail for the rest of his life. It all started here on December 18, 1968. Mr. and Mrs. Kenneth Olson had booked a public tennis court in Santa Monica and had put some coins in a timer to turn on the lights. But before they could begin to play, 2 black men came up to them, demanded money, and told them to lie down and pray. The men got $18. They started to walk away, suddenly turned back and began shooting. Carolyn Olson was fatally wounded. Kenneth Olson was shot 3 times, but recovered. For 2 years, the police searched for the murderers of Carolyn Olson, using this composite drawing based on Kenneth Olson's recollection. He said one of the killers was clean-shaven, shorter and lighter skinned than the other. Then the Los Angeles police opened this letter, which had been written by a former Black Panther who claimed that Pratt had confessed to him that he, Pratt, committed the murder. With Pratt a suspect, the police showed these mugshots to Kenneth Olson, the survivor. He picked Pratt as the light-skinned, clean-shaven gunman and later repeated his identification at Pratt's trial in June of 1972. After over 10 days and nights of deliberation, a jury convicted Geronimo Pratt of first-degree murder. They put Geronimo Pratt in prison, and he dropped out of the news, and that could have been it. But in the mid-1970s, a series of things began to happen. A Senate investigating committee found that the FBI had had a highly questionable counterintelligence program aimed at the Black Panthers, and that Pratt was a special target. Then it was revealed that this man, Julius Butler, the ex-Black Panther who wrote the letter that made Pratt a suspect, that Butler was in regular contact with the FBI prior to the trial. The FBI also revealed that it had informants reporting on Pratt's conversation with his lawyers. And then Amnesty International put Pratt's name on a list of people held in jail around the world for possible political reasons.
I don't think there's a more important case I'll handle in my lifetime than this case.
Former Republican Congressman Pete McCloskey is now one of Geronimo Pratt's lawyers.
Well, the key thing was that the key witness against Pratt had been an FBI informant, was carried on the FBI rolls as a probational racial informant, clearly was an informant, had denied under oath on the stand that he worked for the FBI or was an informant. The FBI knew that he was an informant.
What did the Los Angeles police and district attorney who prosecuted Pratt for the murder, what did they know about the FBI program?
The two agencies clearly worked together, but we don't have any clear proof that the LA police and the LA prosecutor knew the depth and the gravity of this FBI program. The FBI, you know, concealed the program even from other FBI agents, not alone the public.
But there was, at the time, admittedly, a good deal of contact between the Los Angeles Police Department and the FBI.
In the reports to J. Edgar Hoover, the special agent in charge of Los Angeles said, we are in daily contact with the LAPD with the efforts to neutralize and get them arrested and convicted of all of the Black Panther leaders.
But did they say that that did not include matters pertinent to the Pratt trial?
It's insane. Why would they have daily contacts if they weren't trying to lock up the Black Panther leaders? That was the whole goal of the program.
But the FBI role was not the only thing that was questionable. How reliable was the eyewitness, Kenneth Olson, the survivor, who picked Pratt out of a lineup? A year before he identified Pratt, he picked Eugene Perkins out of a lineup as the clean-shaven, light-skinned killer. The only trouble was, Perkins was in jail at the time of the murder. Larry Rivets, a public defender in Los Angeles, represented Perkins at the lineup 19 years ago. Why is that incident, that lineup, and your notes on it, why is that important?
Anytime a witness who testifies in a trial that this man is the man who is the criminal in my case, anytime he has made a prior identification, that's an important factor which a defense lawyer will emphasize to the jury to show the lack of reliability and the absence of reliability of this witness. And it's something we'd hammer at. Didn't you make a prior identification at a lineup?
That would have been automatic for the defense to do.
Oh, yes.
But they didn't know about it, is that right?
That's my understanding. They didn't know about it.
And the results of the lineup would be in the general file on that case, is that right?
Normally, yes.
How could it be not in the file?
I have no idea. You know, I'm just saying in my 20 years of experience, where there has been a lineup, I have never run across an instance where they've lost the lineup card.
I think had the jury known that Butler was an FBI informant, had they known about the identification of the second suspect and the existence of the second suspect, I think it would have made enough doubt that the jury would have found him innocent.
Now a judge, Michael Nash was the Deputy Attorney General who represented the state of California during Geronimo Pratt's last two unsuccessful attempts to get a new trial.
I never saw anything that indicated that the man was anything but guilty of this crime.
You would still agree with the prosecutor who when he told the jury the FBI is not involved in this case?
Absolutely.
What about Julius Butler, the ex-Black Panther who named Pratt? Wouldn't it have been important for the jury to know that there were FBI records showing dozens of contacts between him and the FBI
The fact that he had had contact with FBI officers or FBI agents who were keeping track of what was going on in the community at that time, at best, would only have been cumulative to what was already presented at the trial with respect to Mr. Butler.
Judge Nash concedes that the FBI had informants reporting on Pratt's conversations with his lawyers, that Pratt was a prime target of the FBI's counterintelligence program. You don't think that any of that has any relevance to the possible fairness of the trial?
No, I don't think it relates to the fairness of the trial. I think that it'd be speculating at best to say that that would have had an impact on the jury in any way.
In fact, 4 of the 5 jurors we were able to talk to agreed with juror Jeannie Rook that the new information would have prevented Pratt's conviction.
I would have to vote for him innocent.
Not guilty.
Not guilty. I do not believe that we would have ever had a totally not guilty verdict just because of some of the other members of the jury. But I do feel that we would have had a hung jury.
So far, the courts have turned down all of Geronimo Pratt's appeals for a new trial, although they did force the California Department of Corrections to release Pratt from solitary confinement after he spent over 5 years there. For the last 10 years, Geronimo Pratt has been in the general prison population, where he's developed a reputation as a peacemaker. He is married, and because of good behavior, he has been allowed conjugal visits. Are you still a revolutionary? Do you believe in the violent overthrow of the United States government?
But no, I've been in prison, married. Now I have another wife I met, who I'm presently married to, and 2 beautiful children. 40 years old this year. As it stands now, I'm only concerned about getting out of prison and also clearing my name and my family's name of this hideous murder.
If you get out,
playing basketball with my son.
Bulldog Ladd, who has spent 35 years behind bars, was the leader of a white racist prison gang, but freely admits that he admires Pratt.
When I look at Geronimo Pratt, I don't see him a black person. You know, I see somebody that's a man. I've seen this man step in and stop, a number of potential confrontations, racial confrontations. I've seen him put himself on line. And
You think he saved some lives in prison?
oh, without a doubt.
Inmates and
Inmates,
maybe staff?
Staff, everybody.
Bulldog's evaluation was seconded by correctional officers we talked with at San Quentin, and by the prison psychologist who wrote an evaluation of Pratt for a meeting of the California Parole Board. Commissioner Maureen O'Connell read the psychologist's report into the record.
His prognosis for parole should be excellent. His potential for violence is minimal. He is a principled individual and an idealist and supporter of human rights. It is hoped that at some time he be given an opportunity to actualize this potential. Let me ask you a question in terms of why, if you had the opportunity to do the same things today as you did in the 60s, would you do them?
In the 80s?
Right.
I doubt it. This is a whole different era.
But Los Angeles Deputy District Attorney Diane Vazani told the California Parole Board last spring,
Mr. Pratt and his crime partner executed these 2 people. They turned around and pumped several rounds into the 2 victims. Mrs. Olson died 10 days later. The time Mr. Pratt left Vietnam, he was walking time bomb. He was mentally, physically, and emotionally in a combat mode. Are we dealing with a time bomb, or are we really dealing with a man that has changed? I think we still have a revolutionary man. He does have this network out there. If he chooses to set up a revolutionary organization upon release from prison, it would certainly be easy for him to do so.
The parole board agreed with the district attorney and refused to give Geronimo Pratt a release date.
Come on, let's go.
All right, the hearing will be concluded. The time is 6 p.m.
There's apparently a pretty good basis for belief that you could be out right now if you wanted to be. You've served longer than someone does normally for your offense in the California prison system. You've got a good record. You've got a good report from your psychologist. You've got a good report from a lot of prison officials on how you behaved. If you would say, hey, I did it and I'm sorry, you might be out already.
Oh, yeah. That's been offered to me. I've been even enticed to escape quite a few times. When I was taken to New York in '76 from right here in Adjustment Center, the agents who were escorting me when we landed in Chicago left me at the counter at the help. I wasn't handcuffed to anything. One went to the toilet and one walked down the, you know, there's a lot of people I could have walked away. When we got to Los Angeles airport, an airport I'm very familiar with, they did the same thing. It was like they got tired and they walked ahead of me and traffic began to pass between us. I mean, cars, a lot of cars. And I'm looking, all I had to do is turn around and jump in the car. I mean, you know, I know the area pretty good. But no, that's not my interest. You can't, I'm an old Louisiana boy. I was raised, my mother, she's still living. You don't put no murder on me that I didn't do.
The FBI refused our request for an interview. They said they stand by the court rulings denying Pratt a new trial. Pratt's lawyers have appealed. A decision is expected early next year.